what we get to see and to live and experience in this reality is a reflection of something that is happening at a higher scale.
Yeah,
And
that's cosmic abandonment. And then the self-sacrifice for the next generation.
yeah, and that's the way that we get to translate it, because there is this huge wound or that is caused by the consciousness, a separated consciousness, like what we were talking earlier, that even though there was a space, even though there was distance, even though they wouldn't be able to communicate, they were still connected. And this separated idea or perspective of reality is one of the things that was firstly designed in the human, so through the brain hemispheres and so forth, leading to all that form of perception. And the other thing, cycles.
Mm-hmm.
That once the cycle is fulfilled, everything comes back together again. So that's something that we, as in like embodying or inhabiting a human form, or human to some extent, because it's upgrading more and more. Precisely the cycles, like if all the humans had been conscious of what was going to happen today, they would even have felt more abandonment. Why until 1 century ahead? Why does it has to happen in 1 century from now? Why not now? Why I'm not feeling you again now? Why?
Yeah.
So then you see how the source to all is emitting this, which is the third one, is emitting these messages also to our it's already present in the subconscious, but it's awakening within the consciousness to see ourselves, to mirror into the source, and come to remember, because it's time now, speaking about cycles, now it's the time of reunitement. So focusing in that reunitement now, and knowing that was happening all the time, and emanate that to the source, so that the source of all transcend that feeling, because in the end, the source to all is emanating that for us to fully transcend it within.
Well put. All right, and this will be a really potent show that will. I'm already feeling the audience and the effect everyone has on this, because we're being primed as a super hybrid human experiment to be this cure to evil and many other things that many of the generations previously failed. And I'm going to go into it pretty deep, and it's going to emotionally affect a lot of you out there, because it still affects me. All right, so you feel free to stop me if you want to go into detail of something deeper. But yeah, so the source child that we call God or whatever, at least the one going back pretty far, that I also call, that's the main chain, middle branch of the tree. That's like the source of all goodness. going up prime creator galaxy, prime creator universe, prime creator multiverse, all the way up to source with all sources. When it met its father, it realized it abandoned it because it was holding back something that would have fucked its child up. And it had to step back and keep that, hold the line and take the bullet for its kid. And despite the wounding and sadness that would cause to essentially abandon it, it is safer than what it would have had to do, and what would have been the corruption of all that exists. Okay. So then, and goodness is older than evil, but we haven't even got back to the origin of evil. So, okay. So, the father could hold back in a self-sacrifice to prevent the spread of a strong evil and corruption. Okay. So the old, whatever you want to call it, I'm gonna older source when all sources line of fathers, that got dealt a deadly blow, and in desperation separately took the part of itself not hit by the spreading death as badly, the spreading death and evil, or deadly evil, and secretly created the child source out of itself, put it in a safe secret place, holding it with hoping it will not be killed and become strong enough to overcome what took it over. And the child is separate and doesn't know or have any entanglement with a father line of abandonment continues, which is a pickle, because if they can't tell them to prepare for the evil death kind of system in the future, which if they did, they would risk giving their position away and bring about their corruption and death faster. But having faith in them to do it with the programmed intuition and instinct. So the older source had to create itself because it got infected and possessed with a large, strong, pure evil. Detached, a less possessed version, birthed as child in secret, and the programs to get strong enough to carry on. It's strong enough to push back an evil and separate from it, to get strong enough and push back against the evil and separate from it and eventually cure it, is what it hoped for. Okay. It programmed enough time for a greater chess move than previous generations of sources, to at least be strong enough to carry on some of its pure self in the next generation, is the cycle that we're talking about. As it's uncreated, is the source of various. Oh, okay. I'm trying to see where I am. Okay, because I kind of typed this up while I was doing other things. So the chess move, and then previous generations of source at least be strong enough to pure self in the next generation. Okay. Okay. So as the being its father was being corrupted, taken over, parts of it uncreated. There's a bunch of shit the evil was being able to do. It is the source of various layers of death. Okay, there's layers on it from the evil that are from various layers of death passed down, programmed to go after and seek the corruption spreading from itself and into future generations. Okay, so sorry, it's confusing. So the thing it held back, the evil, took over itself and corrupted it, taking its abilities and all that it could do, and it did something to stop a bunch of things to stop it, and there are layers of it that are a program to seek the corrupted attachment and keep spreading and track it back, and then that's some of the inheritance we got through the source of all sources that was put in the prime darky source, that then eventually gave away our position. And then the evil came a knocking to our macrocosm, whatever you want to say. Okay. Spreading for himself. Okay, so future generations. So the cure, going back to going back, quarantine. Okay, so the cure for this is sending the cure that we've made for evil, going back, quarantine compressing around the evil that's spreading, trying to spread to us, and what's being uncreated of the source, and where to reverse that, slowly pulling the father source out of the quarantine piece by piece that's purified and rebuilding them. And so essentially bringing them back into existence, and while still purifying, quarantining the cancerous spread of the evil, so it doesn't keep, and then they become, giving them the cure to become strong and then team up. And what's being uncreated but pulled, so I'm trying to read this, it's weird. Uncreated, but pulling purified parts one by one and uncreating this, from the uncreated source, bringing them purified back into creation. So it's a little confusing because there's multiple layers. It's not just uncreation that's being infecting onto them. So then this kind of thing goes back pretty far. This happens in multiple generations, essentially, of fathers, because they're not able to tell the kid what happened, and they don't know themselves until a lot of them get predictive programming on what's about to happen because they have the precognitive ability, so they have a little bit of time to prepare, and then they create the child and then keep themselves going. But some of the times they don't prepare and they just have a little bit of an instant to save a bit of themselves secretly. Either way, the line continues. So I'll just kind of read into it, but it's kind of weird. Previous source got 70% of itself corrupted and possessed with evil. It saved 30% of itself, split it off to the next generation. It is currently now like a possessed puppet for evil. And when I say now, weird, it's time. I don't know. When I was reading it, many people that are, it reminds me of many people that are slaves to the system. And this film that I saw where a father saved their kid. Have you seen this? Here, I'm gonna.
Yes.
Have you
As
seen?
you shared with me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show the audience then. We can.
Yeah, sure. Let me. Good. Yeah.
So it's like the zombie apocalypse, if it were, or whatever. He got bit, but he's got a kid.
Lonely mind, maybe that's why I try to what was right. Every time, see you should run for you. I could be, you could finally, could hide, you could try, you could find, I can't let you be part of the wreckage at all. Every night, thinking the same way. I'd have tried, but what if it's not enough? We'll be fine. Just leave those your eyes. But sweet demise is your lips press against mine. I could feel you could you could I can't let you be part of the wreckage at all. Oh, oh, at all.
Mm.
My God, we could fall in love. We could be, you could, we could find to love and let go. We could jump, could fall. I can't let you be part of the wreckage at all. No, the wreckage at all.
Hmm.
Yeah, so self-sacrifice with that pretty heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
so
hadn't seen it. I thought you were talking about another one. So yeah, I hadn't watched it. So yeah.
yeah, so yeah, yeah, I'll touch some people. Touch me.
Yeah.
Then it reminds me of that where the father then got overtaken and then corrupted and kind of turned into like a zombie puppet kind of thing. Chain of many possessed. So there's a chain of this happening over and over again. Chain of many possessed corrupt sources going back from.
Can I just,
Yeah.
and yet, even if he was corrupted, he got to manage and find a way within his own corruption to get his son safe to a safe space. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's on a lot of parents' mind to that, next generation is more important in that love side. Keep that going, that flame, despite any darkness. So there's a chain of this happening over and over again, unfortunately, because they can't tell the child what happened. So it repeats. Corrupted source, going back to there's a cycle usually like where it will the closer to us or that the newer generations, they will have more time to prepare and more of themselves they can invest into the next generation. Going back farther, to a common theme, they only have a little bit of a chance, a little bit of time, and they can only protect 1%. And so less time to prepare, but still gives them a hope. So then, yeah, and I'm following this back to the next big Vesica Pisces, which I'll call the mega. Let's say that was source when all sources, going back to a mega source when all sources, which is another singularity with a bunch of sub source when all sources in between. It's weird to say these things. The source. So the next the next one, there's a few in between, but it went back enough to like where I'm at, 80% back to where if it was 100% back, it'd be the mega source from all sources. So 80% too is where the source of possession comes from. So all possession, all that came into existence, the concept of possession. So like why? Why did this older father create possession? It was getting it was also getting overwhelmed and corrupted by the evil and dominated. So by the evil, the infected pure evil, it attempted to possess the corrupting evil and limit its evil power from spreading. So it created possession. So it was able to limit evil's advancement by, let's say, a big ass number for the audience, like trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, biggest number I care to remember, trillion. That's outrageous number 1 times itself outrageous number 2. This is outrageous number 100. So it was able to stop its spread of evil quite a bit. So it's lessening its spread, but still got corrupted and taken over. And then evil got its ability of possession. So then evil is now using possession, but it was still able to stop it quite a bit. And that's adding to a little bit of the cure too, because it's lessening how evil it is. But giving it an ability, unfortunately. And that was okay, lessening its spread, but still got corrupted and controlled, and that was the forces to spread to 1%. Oh yeah, so that possession then was taken over by evil, and it used that possession to spread to the 1% that got away and eventually find it. It broke that broke off and created as its child to try to save it and separate itself from the evil. Quarantine. So the cure is quarantine the possession and domination, corruption, infecting evil, and pull out the pure parts like before. So it's like the same theme. Quarantine, pull out the parts, and then put it back together, restore them, bring them back to life, all that. So then it's going back. So there's a common theme with this that I can like limit down. So then another previous source, father, going back. So like there's a bit of a thing where it's the same thing going back, like possession, all the way through a bunch of those fathers until it gets to a new type of created source of, like, let's say domination. It's back to so the source of domination, where domination came into existence, it attempted to make a new thing to dominate the evil that was overtaking it, and then also got corrupted, and the domination fell into the evil's hand, because evil doesn't create anything, it steals it. So all the tools it ever got were stolen by an older source. Attempted to stop the ancient spreading evil from infecting the new generation, and it got infected, corrupted, dominated. It used domination to hold it back and lessen the power of evil. So that keeps going back. So then
Hmm.
the source of corruption, same, try to corrupt the evil, hold it back, same type of cure. Yeah, and the cycle continues, and then it going back to uh source of control. So like trying to control it to hold it back, then gets overtaken. Same thing. Source of prisons. So now I'm gonna name a bunch going back. So it's one of the source fathers tried to hold it back with prisons. And then that got taken over. Before that, we can resolve it with the same strategy plus freedom. Then source of chaos, balancing it with order. Source of explosion, self-destruction. Oh, let me see. Did I say that? Okay. Okay. One that was really cool was the source of death. Essentially, the source uncreated itself so like it stopped the spreading of a lot of evil by self-destructing and uncreating itself, and that's the origin of death. So like if you're wondering where is the curse of death, where does that come from, why do beings have to die, that's where it comes from. And it spreads because then evil took it over and is using it to limit life, and it's necessary in some regards, but in ultimate creational constructs it's not exactly necessary unless you're a bunch of other forces like evil is going. So death imprints and possesses around corruption. So if you already have like a degrading radiation, like a thing going on in your cells, then death is following that. So once you get rid of all of that and fully purify of all of that, death is not unneeded.
And also, if you link that to the depth of life or life depth, then it connects to that possession because it fits from that idea of scarcity or that frequency that, well, yeah, like that very low frequency, which is like, you owe me your life, which also relates to the sword, which is what, in a distorted form. And then life ends, life ceases to resolve the debt.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in inheritance too, because the pure separated forms of this didn't get away from the spreading corruption. It's got little bits of it, but it was quarantined enough to like give it time, the new generations of source to get strong enough to eventually find out the solutions for it more and more and more. But yeah, death is passed along, and now it can be utilized and controlled, and it has a purpose, but that purpose is not fully in divine order because it's been corrupted at its source. But then that's like the authorities of death need to be brought back to order, and then because like why do the good die young is like the concept, because some of the authority of death is in the hands of evil, and they want to get rid of people that are a threat to them in this game that would otherwise through moral code be granted more life because they make a valuable asset to this world, besides like, oh, maybe other places are calling them to go somewhere else, but if they already can spread themselves multidimensionally, then it doesn't really apply in that situation. So then it goes back a bunch. Go ahead.
How would you now this related to the sacrifice, how would you transcend, or how do you think that program could be transcended?
Death, so
Sacri-
undeath or uncreation, recreation, it's like part of what Source can do. At least are closer to the cure version of Source, as it's going back and healing and restoring its father, and then they're teaming up and then healing the previous father, and that's the goal of it, to do that, and then unite with all of it, and then all together united resolve the sources of evil. So before going back all the way to the source of evil, all these things that we call dark or negative abilities, they were originally created by light to stop darkness, and then darkness took them over. So like the source of prisons, the source of chaos, all then the source of destruction, to destroy the parts of itself getting infected and self-destruct, and to just try to destroy the threat. Source of suffering, quenching the flame of suffering, source of shadow, quarantining and bringing the self into self-supporting, which is the opposite of shadow. Self-supporting, misery, balance to its opposite. A lot of it is the cures in the opposite polarity. The source of war, same thing. Source of invasion, source of blocks, source of limits, source of sovereignty, corruption, source of capture, source of prison realms, source of quarantine realms, source of traps, source of fortress, source of protection, source of offense, defense, source of camouflage, source of durability, source of paralyzation, source of safety, source of resilience, source of survival, source of hacking. All these created to stop evil. Source of infiltration, source of binding, source of draining. So like vampirism, even that was to stop evil. Source of ejection from the game kind of thing. Source of restriction, source of curses, source of venom, source of cancer, source of insanity, source of uncreation, source of matrix. All these things were made to stop evil. And then going back to the ultra source with all sources, had an inherited illness that overtook it. So it made a child out of 50% of it that was less ill. They are still ill. And then the gain cure, which is where healing comes from. The cure for the illness. Which is, going pretty far back. Then, so I'm using now systems for source from all sources, mega source from all source, ultra source from all sources. Oh, wait, super, actually, sorry, I said mega. So source from all sources, super, source from all sources, mega source with all sources, ultra source with all sources, hyper source with all sources. Okay, whatever. So, and in between, a lot of these creations are billions of sources of a lot of the closer to us generations are like geared to stopping evil, with like root chakra tech, 2 of those sections, then creational tech, and then solar plexus tech, which then going back to origin, more of the crown chakra tech is the like older types of concepts that came into existence, is what I'm realizing. So the newer stuff is towards evil and the root and foundation of our reality, which is material, which makes sense as this is like the dense part. So then going back like maybe 4 of these, it is when around where evil came into creation, is what I'm reading of the source of all sources. And so I read that evil was created by the being that was, I guess you could call, the source of darkness. It was created as a interesting experiment, like quite a far distance away from what light was created, and then all in between of neutral into its expression, which is lack of support to do things on its own and to tap into what we kind of call the void. I call the mother void, or emptiness, nothingness, and draw potential out from the potential energy of that into kinetic energies, like what we have in physics. Like in any given space, there's like a larger amount of energy in potential than most of what we can see. Unfortunately, darkness did not really tap into that well. So it like, because it's kind of designed to try to tap into that instead of what was known, which is mostly just the light and how to tap into light and draw power from that. So it had nowhere to go off of. So it was like shooting in the dark. It doesn't know what to do. Uh, uh, and the cure for that is going inward and emptying themselves, becoming nothing. And with that, they become a vessel to fill. And what they're emptying is a lot of the negative stuff and limitation and all that. And that goes along with purifying to what they need to be to earn both light to support themselves, and then go deeper inward to draw from the dark in a positive manner. They didn't have that equation back then, so they ended up getting kind of a bunch of negative emotions spurred up from that, which was like abandonment. I'm alone, I'm isolated, I'm in prison, I was looking into all the emotions that started generating, like coming into existence with darkness, which was like alone, nobody likes me, I'm separated, they're all putting boundaries away from me, I have to earn all this stuff, I'm being treated differently. And some beings would attack it and try to kill it. And even especially into the future, but like, so it then ended up creating what is known as evil, which the original purpose of evil, and remember this, is to accumulate and acquire light abilities and power. And it can do that, but it has to earn it. So in the beginning, it was neutral when it programmed it. It didn't really program it that well. It didn't have empathy. It didn't have love and all that moral code. So it was accumulating what it could in abilities. The dark's main purpose is to learn the light abilities, but in the dark source. It wasn't doing that well, so it ended up going to light and taking going after and earning light tech. So then the evil operating system that acquires stuff, like power and control, how evil works, went and after the things it was allowed to, and then after it finished doing that, it asked to get more, and the light had requirements on it, and like, oh, you got to do this and this, and all, jump all these hoops and prove yourself and that you're worthy and all this stuff. So evil didn't do those, it just took. So then it started harming to take more and more, and then darkness's original reaction to this is a little bit of you kind of deserve it, to the dark, because it wasn't treated well, and it let it happen. But then the aspect of it that's evil went out of its control and became really harmful, and then eventually backlashed on itself and possessed the darkness with evil. And so now when I was reading most of the timeline, oh, why didn't you care about that, or was upset about that, or wanted to cure that? It's most of its consciousness state in it. Well, it happened already. I don't know what to do about it. Nobody else seems to know what to do about it. It just is. So then it started getting worse and worse and corrupting and stealing more and more stuff and acquiring power, and then becoming this overpowered being of like separation, ego, shadow, uncontrollable, chaotic, orderly, and pure evil, and many other ways to define that then spread throughout the universe, taking over things and stealing their tech. And then that's spreading down the line of sources, corrupting all of them as they try to separate and then create a cure and antidote for it. But older than that is a bunch of the light concepts, because that just ends at the solar plexus. So everything in the heart going up was created before it.
When you're talking about the darkness taking and taking and taking more, it's the black hole fitting from all that energy, you know, like bringing it in order to take it inside.
Yep.
And it's quite and actually,
That's
if
how it
we
works.
say that we live inside a black hole, then naturally the subconscious would be reflecting on that way, you know, like that interpreted by a cognitive mind, or well, a cognitive thinking, you know, replicating it through limits of perception, and based on a 3D, on a system, on institutional systems and so forth. So yeah, now what about the purpose? You know, like, okay,
Yeah, darkness isn't supposed to be evil. That was just the add-on it created. It's supposed to have a imbalanced purpose, but it was like meant to be separate from light and create its own thing, but it wasn't able to. Now it's more so able to. You can essentially create every ability the light has sourced from dark, but and other generations of sources are able to do that because it learned from that, and but was able to utilize it in the frequency of light. But that source of darkness is still on the healing path because it's holding up all these other things. So now it's trying to heal itself.
until it comes to remember that it's not alone. And
Right.
here comes the kinetic force and shows a way to direct all that energy so that it took can go back, or not back, can return, evolved.
Yeah, and then there eventually will they create boundaries, like the masculine and feminine in marriage counseling. They got to create boundaries. They can't be crossing each other's boundaries and flinging shadow at each other. And then they can start healing and trading. So the light his goal is to support it while not being corrupted. And then the dark will be able to hold back and prevent and be resilient and a lot of other stuff until it is able to purify and then match what the light can do in its creations. And then they learn from each other advancedly. So then that goes in the cure for evil, which what humanity is a part of. And then amplifying that back in those source chains to like bring harmony and restoration to all of the macrocosms, and then resolve it in human bodies and this drama going on here and a lot of other things.
You know, yeah, like when you're saying about that, about how they are flowing in rhythm so that they can be and be these two forces, the potential and the kinetic force, like be and be. It's about the cycles as well, you know, it's like it's our turn, now it's our turn. And I believe that this is also something that would, based on the cycles, like, okay, it was your turn. You fulfilled your purpose. Now it's our turn, or my turn, or this turn to fulfill this purpose. And because in the end, as you were saying, as you were describing it, is we are embodying the father
You can
that
call it
at
mother.
some
I just
point,
didn't want to apply abandonment to the mother, But yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean,
This is creation, so
yeah, but like to the source to all, let's say, you know, like we are playing that role in order to remember ourselves as creators, yet creators within a remembrance, because this has already happened. It's happening with the source to all. So that corruption, that embodiment of corruption, that experimentation and so forth is just a remembrance of the source to all. So now tuning into what, like how we were saying, reflect what's next, what has already happened, you know, in the highest, in the most evolved or in the best timelines of all, and to reflect that to the source now as mirrors, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's beautiful.
thanks for saying that. I like the word source to all. That is also what I'm going to be using now. I was just reading the peak thing it's good at is goodness at the core. But and I use the word the all as a form of collective for any time we all have to vote. So I'm like, oh, the collective of the all needs to come in. But yeah, I like the source of all. That's a good word for it. This whole chain tree going back and how to describe it.
Mm, yeah, and you know, about what you were saying about, because those are huge topics, you know, that are, yeah, that most of us could reflect in or reflected at some point in our lives, and that are these huge belief systems that it's the perception that makes them not fulfill their purpose yet. What do I mean by this? For instance, as long as they have not a purpose yet, they would remain, you know, repeating. As soon as something has a purpose or loses its purpose completely, then another thing is created from that. So
Yeah, and then
I
reincarnation grid and the forgetting. Where does that come from?
the amnesia.
Within that spectrum too.
I related to it might sound like too mundane, but as what we know as time, the linear time system, because from this realm, everything comes to space-time. So imagine that our torus is fully expanded, you know, booming, blossoming in a perfect performance. And then if you translate that to most of humanity that is coming from a space of fear and, you know, like mostly fear, let's say, then that torus it's like it has a fissure. I love it. It's like it has a fissure, you know, it's like leaking energy. And that fissure is created because the cycles have a specific rhythm, and the linear time system is like limiting that cycling, and it comes out to appear as it is accelerating it. That's the artificial matrix. So in that arrhythmia, for me, it's generated the fissure in the torus, or could be generated the fissure in the torus. And then that generates the amnesia, because you have all this remembrance, all these memories, and then they get lost in that gap in between cycle, like the algorithm of the cycles and the algorithms of the AM, or the artificial matrix. So in that gap, all that amnesia expands.
Yeah. And that like brings into like a working system, illness, and what is illness? Why does it even have to exist? What's the lessons from it? The polarity, the lesson of being something, being not, opposite healing, illness, and being able to know more and be able to advance in both by knowing the polarity and this world and what this is, and like learning to the extremes and being kind of in a good, there's good aspects to this world, but there's also the need to resolve the ancient wounds. And so like making a big compression and unity melting pot for all the things of the multiverse to do stuff here to resolve it out. And part of that is the concept of amnesia, which is forgetting. Where did that come from? Why did it happen? It goes back to that line of fathers trying to stop evil, getting it to forget. So the source of forgetting, and then that getting corrupted, and then that part of reality spreading, but then getting trapped here. So then it playing out in this game and being an aspect of the world, whether we like it or not. It not being always here, because I read in the past history, it wasn't always here. It's like brought in. Like if you want to, like some people say, oh, we need to forget to like get rid of all the wounds and the trauma. Kind of, that will help. But where it doesn't help is if the only goal of this planet is to ascend, doing the life over and over again without learning lessons doesn't do that.
Exactly.
That's self-defeating. That doesn't help. That's like a trap. So then there are aspects of it that aren't positive or to your benefit, which are like a weight. But the weight is to train well, if you can turn any negative thing that happens to you into a school that trains you and gets you stronger, become immune to it, to transcend it. This is the place of transcendence, of dense amount of weights of different types to learn how to transcend all those type of things at once, so that we become overpowered as a cure.
That we become overpowered.
Yeah, overpowered, exactly. And then you go wherever you want after you are here with that overpoweredness. Even if this reality kind of sucks and you can't fly and do all that stuff unless you really try hard in the 100 years, or if you life extended yourself, that you're here.
That's why we are operating our biological system, right?
Yeah,
In the morning,
do it.
in the morning, I was watching a small spider, going through its web. And in the beginning, I didn't know what was it. It was last night. And I was saying, what's that thing flying? And I remember that the other day I was saying, if we like truly deeply ignite the spider codes, that's how also a way to fly, because if you see, you cannot perceive
The web
the
can
quantum weaving, but you're pending from it. Yeah.
deep stuff. I like that. Barely anyone talks about levity from the spider. And in a spiritual attack. And yeah, there's like spiders are one of the founder races in weaving reality and constructs and dream weaves. So they got a lot of tech. And then the bigger ones that look through the eyes of the spiders that we have on Earth, or the big ass ones down in underground, but whatever. Yeah, there's many. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this world. It's deep and beautiful to discover, but also harsh at times. But then it's our challenge to see the beauty in those harsh things and understand at their original purpose, they were to save us.
Exactly.
So even if they hurt us now, they saved us from a worse fate.
We are now in this moment capables to, well, in full capability, if we believe so, to rewrite the story. And by rewrite, I mean remembering what to choose. What is the choice, the best choice? Yeah.
Deep. Yeah, this is a deep show. So leave a comment, share this if you like it. smash that like button, subscribe, leave a comment below of how blown your mind is all over the place and how many pieces is it in. Let us know. And can you tell them about the Egypt trip?
Sure. Well, as you know, Sean and I, we are hosting a trip to Egypt in March 2024. And the mission of this trip is superhuman love, to achieve this amplified emanation of this essential frequency, and to do it through ancient technology and all this ancient wisdom as well, this encoded wisdom, to be able to be who we truly are, to be our nature, to occupy our space, and enjoying why we came here for, because yeah, that's also the mission. Like, believe us, if you choose to come with us, we will have a lot of fun, and we will achieve a lot of um, quantum leaps and a lot of evolution, and all coming from a space of love. So then it will be sustainable in your reality, because that's also very important. So yeah, we will be visiting amazing places, like the most renowned temples. We will also be camping in the desert, in one of the most beautiful ones, which is the White Desert, where these lioness guardians, giant beings are, and encoding a lot of information as the libraries that they are holding the space for. And we will also be visiting, climbing the Mount Sinai for the sunrise, swimming with the dolphins, and doing most of this ride in a very beautiful private boat, for us to generate a stronger communion in between one another. And
Soul family meet up.
exactly. So yeah, it's a very fully equipped trip, and we're very excited to share this with you. And yeah, so
March 21st to April 2nd. Join our Facebook group, Humanity's Upgrade to Superhuman Love, SHL. You can also go on my website at PsionicLeague.com in the top-down menu, Sacred Trips, or send us an email. I got PsionicLeague@gmail.com. Can you list your email?
yeah, sure. It's I can also write it later in the description, but it's omnivision dot hunuch, which is HUNUH at outlook.com.
Wonderful. And yeah, can you name drop any other ways to reach you and anything else you have planned?
Thank you. Well, yeah, right now I have an upcoming book in English, my first book in English. It's The One Manifest. And you can also find me in my YouTube channel, which is Isha, like it's spelled in my in the name in above here in my screen. Isha, YSSAH ARZ Lib, LIB. So from there you can reach out to my YouTube channel, my Facebook, and also my Instagram. And yeah, we're planning a lot of things coming up. And also soon we'll have my web page, so that you can see the courses, the online courses that I deliver, and the methods like the source code, the translation, and yeah, actually some very a very handy ancient technology that I have put into a method that is mainly about unfolding the full potential of your brain through holofractographic nanotechnology, through codes, frequencies, and very specific ways of approaching this in very specific parts of the brain. And yeah, so thank you.
Wonderful. And yeah, I will, you can reach me at psionicleague.com, like I said before, psionicleague@gmail.com, Sean Bond on Facebook, Psionic League Instagram, YouTube, Psionic League. And I will be doing some conferences in the future. I'm doing one in January 8th to 11th in Florida. So look out for that one. Try to send links and stuff. I don't really have the links for it at the moment, but I will put it out. So look around for that and come. I'd love to see you guys and share the love and meet you. And yeah, I'll just end with showing another emotional trigger of self-sacrifice that kind of reminds me of the concept of what we've spoken today. So I'll just do that. And this came to me as a kid as a cartoon. Okay, there we go. Go back to that. Can you see it?
Yes, now we do.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. It's like very sad, and it's like, why do things trigger us and make us cry and go down like a lineage? Every one of those tears, soul tears, it like means something. It tells you about yourself, and you can track back when it happened, what it relates to. Sometimes it keeps going back in occurrences and reoccurring, and you can track it back to origin. And that's like the concept of why hero sacrifice, self-sacrifice makes such a big impact on us too. And the love and the loss and the connection and continuing for your children.
And just speaking about Antidote, and you mentioned the tears. If you leak
I do
your
that too. Yeah, it's like kind of like a waste. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah, because you're a blessing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a blessing.
you're alchemizing. Yeah.
Every tear is a healing. So it can, if you, I don't really have a bottle everywhere around me, like save it up. But if someone was to do that, it would be meaningful. Like some weird, I've heard magic spells that like the tears of a mermaid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the tears that awake the the Sleeping Beauty or the
Yeah,
or the
that's true.
yeah
Yeah, and like those movies where the tears drip onto somebody and then they wake up.
exactly that one I was meaning.
So love you all. Appreciate watching this and integrating this huge thing that is possibly, I'm not trying to project on anyone, but this is what I read has happened in the source line. At least going back to the origin of darkness and evil, and I'll list the older ones and the source of light going back later, but this is the wound that needs healing. So love you all. Thank you for being a cure. And look forward to seeing you more in the future, and anyone that comes on that Egypt trip, thank you. So hope you all have a great day.
Thank you all.